live from the Next Better Studio, which happens to be an office in my barn because I love having my office mere steps away from everything else in my life that is important. So happy to see you guys. And with me, as always, is the wonderful Coach Kristen Wrinkle. How are you?
Doing good. A little tired, but when are we not?
That's a part of the journey sometimes, right?
Right, right. I've got coffee for that, so we're good.
There you go. There you go. You had not so many moons ago, you were cutting it out a little bit. How did that process go?
I try to, well, I do just cut it out every week that I do a deload week. So that's every 12 weeks. That when I'm like not lifting super hard or crazy, it's just like a good time to do that, I feel like. Um, I remember it used to be really difficult when I had a higher caffeine tolerance. Cutting it out, I had a horrible headache for days, but you're a little tired, you know?
Yeah.
You can kind of get through it just as long as you get enough sleep. I was hearing on a podcast I was listening to earlier today, Michael Easter, he wrote
Hmm.
Comfort Crisis.
Yep, love it.
He was talking about the horrible caffeine withdrawals he was having. Just felt like he had the flu for 28 hours and
Mm.
constant headache for days. So it's not that bad, but it is definitely something to think about if you're planning on cutting out caffeine for a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the most utilized drug in the world.
Mm-hmm. Most
So,
popular.
yeah, absolutely. And coming from a avid user myself because I drink coffee all the time. So I keep it black, which is helpful, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's one of those, I love it, Kristen, because I think a lot of people probably listening to this drink caffeine because it's a socially acceptable drug to take every single day, multiple times a day, right? So who's going to judge us for it? The question just becomes the intentionality behind it. And
Mm-hmm.
and I love the intentionality you have behind cutting it out when it's a deload week, so there's an a practice behind it, and recognizing the benefits and the detriments so that you can make those decisions, such as, does it make you anxious, does it make it hard to sleep, what are the causes? I've found
Right.
myself at part times in my life drinking coffee to wake up, having a glass of wine or two or three at the end of the day to unwind. And it's like, if we're utilizing chemicals to do that back and forth all the time, could we maybe find a way in which we do those things a little bit more naturally? So again,
Right.
I don't like the good or bad. I just like the, is it on purpose?
Mm-hmm. And the brew, is different. There's like people will test the brew of, various Starbucks locations and find out that a venti or a large has a different amount milligrams of caffeine than another one in another
Mm.
location. So you really don't entirely know. And then yeah, if it comes from a different leaf or a coffee bean, it'll release a little slower and give you different side effects. So it's really about finding out what works best for you and leveraging that to your yeah.
Yeah, taking the time to figure out what you're putting in your body, right? I think is a really big aspect of it. And then asking yourself, is this what I want? So I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Love that. We
absolutely.
got some great questions today that I saw
Good.
on the sheet. And so for those who are hopping on for the first time, welcome. Excited to have you. The goal here is I love answering questions. I love answering questions that are real, that are raw, that are unfiltered. And to be frank, I really appreciate answering them in this way because this is the most truthful and authentic way to answer questions, is to have people come up and say, hey, what do you think about this? And I could sit here and chat GPT it and spit something out to you later on that could maybe hit the mark a little bit. But this type of questioning really affords the opportunity to speak to the person real and raw. So these questions are brought to us through a form. I don't read them. I don't want to, just because I don't want to have a pre-dedicated answer. I want an answer that is true and filtered, even or unfiltered, even if that means and saying I don't know, which I think us as leaders, we need to spend more time saying I don't know things. So I'm excited for this. Kristen is responsible for bringing these really awesome and thoughtful questions, and making sure we have something to talk about, and also weighing in with her insights and her perspectives, which is always so valuable. So if you ever have questions and you want to ask somebody who is a professional in a lot of ways and very unprofessional in some, But if you want to ask somebody who's been coaching for 15 years now about how to improve yourself in the 8 different areas that we can improve ourselves, which are physical, spiritual, mental, social, vocational, material, spatial, and my favorite, directional. If you want to improve yourself in these ways, then grab the form. We throw it up in chats all the time on LinkedIn. You can find it and just DM us and ask, and we'll be happy to give it to you. Then you can ask your own questions and save a hell of a lot of money if you want, right? Free coaching is nice. So happy to offer it. So Kristen, what do we got today? I know we queued one up last time, which was something to the effect of something I've already forgotten. So I don't have a predetermined answer because I don't remember what it was. So hit us with it.
It was related to building a great culture in startups. And then we have some other questions about staying positive during adversity and a few new ones about balancing drive and rest and managing multiple meaningful projects that don't have a hard deadline. Yeah, so very interesting stuff. Lots of variety today.
I love this. This is going to be so exciting. I don't know how it works that these questions are actually applicable, because I think sometimes even myself, sometimes I'm like, what do you focus on? What do you do? What is your and so every time these questions come, I think it's great. I think a lot of it has to do with how do I improve myself, right? So personal responsibility is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful things we can do to change the world. If everybody took the initiative to better themselves and the relationship they have with other people, the world would continue to be an even better place. And so it's great that everybody is asking these thoughtful questions. Let's jump in. I'm done talking.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah. And they're all, we're all very special, but not as different as we think we are. So we're all kind of, often going through the same adversity. So that's really interesting. Yeah, I read one of the questions and it's from a former bodybuilder. I was like, oh, that's applicable to me potentially.
Hey, I love it.
So very cool. So yeah, I'm excited for this conversation. We have a first question from Nate. Nate and his team are moving into a hiring phase of their startup, and he wants to establish a great culture, which is super important. So his question is, when it comes to culture, what are some basic principles to build upon, and how do you encourage people to embrace them, and how do you right the ship if course correction is needed? So there's a lot of questions in there, but we'll break it down.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to ask you to repeat the second parts later because I'm going to answer the first one because that was the first one I heard and I want to make sure I touch on it. So great question, Nate. I love it, buddy. In fact, I know Nate. And so thanks for sharing this one, buddy. This is great. So a couple things. One, let's really define what culture is. And so there's lots of different ways you can define culture. This is how I define it. It is the collection of 3 things. That is a vision, values, and rituals, which is actually rituals, but it sounds cooler when they're all V's. So vision, values, and rituals. And so when you can understand those 3 things and you can intentionally build them, you have yourself a culture. And it doesn't matter to me if you're talking about a church or a sports organization or a Fortune 500 company that is doing successfully well. When you have those 3 things right, you have a phenomenal culture. So a vision, where are we going? And it doesn't have to be a plan, right? A vision is not a plan. A vision is, I see the world a better place because of this, this, and this. And so that's what we want to move towards. For instance, for us at Next Better, our vision is we see a world in which people wake up on purpose, take responsibility for bettering their lives, are grateful for what they have, and work to build a fulfilling life, contributing meaningfully to the world. That's our vision. Ironically, it's the vision I have as a human, right? Those are the things I believe in. In fact, my 5 core values are in that statement. And so one of the things that I think Nate can benefit from, but a lot of people in the startup space, and startups are becoming very, very popular these days for a lot of reasons that we won't get into because that's not part of the question. But one of the things that they need to realize is there are 2 ways that an organization gets their values. A very long-term, long-standing organization can pool the collective beliefs of the team to say, what do we all believe in that we can get behind and move forward, right? That's one way. The third and worst way is to say, here are the 5 values we believe in because we saw them at Apple or Macintosh or Harley Davidson or whatever, and we're just going to steal those, right? And I'm going to tell everyone right now, if one of your core values is honesty or integrity, stop it, because that's everybody's core values. Okay, if you have a good reason for it, I'd love to hear it. But usually, honesty, do the right thing, don't lie. Yeah, okay, right. Setting the bar pretty low. Another one is integrity, which is doing the right thing even when nobody's watching. So it's living by your values. So one of your values is living by your values. Okay, can we get a little deeper? So my point is, just getting them off the back of a cereal box, not a great decision, right? Just throwing them out there because the marketing guy said this is going to be a really good way to do it. The second option is pooling the group. Neither one of those things is what Nate wants, because Nate is starting an intentional, meaningful startup where he wants to empower people and he wants the right people on board. And so we're left with the third option, which I think is really powerful, and it's for startups. The ones that I also took from my company, the one I teach other companies, is the values of the founder are the values of the organization. Sam Walton, when he started Walmart, Sam Walton's values were Walmart's values. Okay. And I can't list them. I don't remember them, but that's what they were. And one of those things is providing value, but also community. Like Walmart believes strongly in community. I don't think today that would be what people say about Walmart. Most communities hate Walmarts because they take away from Walmart or take away from the community. But that's kind of what he believed in. And so when Sam Walton died, when he didn't do a great job of passing it on for whatever reason, right? We won't get into it, but a lot of those values died with him. And so now we associate Walmart with low prices, which is great, but that's not really where he was coming from. It wasn't just we have the cheapest stuff in town or we have every color of duct tape, right? It was the idea of bringing value to the community and supporting each other. And so Sam Walton's values became Walmart's values. And then as it got bigger, they lost sight of that. And so as a startup, it's really, really important that the founder understands themselves and their values, because if you are going to bring people on board to your organization, they have to resonate with that. And for a while, the challenge becomes we bring a couple people on board because we mesh with them. We get a good gut reaction with them. We feel like they're just good people. Why do we feel that way? Well, because unconsciously, we see our values in them. One of my values is gratitude. So if I hear people whining a lot and they don't talk about the good things in life, that sits ill with me. So I need to be able to identify that. Why? Because a great business is a system, right? If you don't have systems, you have a job. And so you go to hire people and you're going off this gut reaction, but you can't articulate it. And so you may get it right, but as you scale and grow, you definitely cannot get it right every single time. And so we see this turnover in startups because we're bringing on people and they're not a good fit and they leave. And then we get all of these sentiments of, oh, they just don't get it. They don't understand. They don't, they're not the right fit. They don't work as hard as I do, which, by the way, nobody's going to work as hard as you at your business, right? That's not going to happen. So if we can understand our values and then we can implement those things into the systems of our business, meaning how do we post job descriptions about our values? How do we hire on our values? How do we train on our values? How do we hold people accountable to their jobs on our values? How do we reward and recognize them on our values instead of waiting until something goes wrong and then holding them accountable to the rules, which nobody really likes? And so for Nate, I think a really important thing is to better understand himself, to really truly dive into those things so he can articulate the values. And this is what I do with organizations. These are our 5 values. Here's why they matter. Here's how we live by them every day. And here are examples of what that looks like every single day. So I'll give you a good example. One of my clients that I worked with, one of their core values they had 6. One of their core values was agility, right? Why is agility important? Because if we want to continue to grow and to foster a sense of excellence in our world, we need to be able to adjust. How does that work in our world? We're going to be flexible when things go wrong. We're going to look for opportunities instead of problems when things happen. And we're going to be open to the idea that we can get things done in different ways if we choose to. What does that look like every day? When a client has an issue that wasn't on the schedule, we are not going to freak out, and we're not going to throw a fit because it wasn't on our schedule. And so now we have to adapt, because that's what agility is all about. And so we are going to support each other. When a team member needs us to come help them, we're going to accept that, and we're going to support each other. And so this was for a startup organization that was in fuel services, and they did construction as well as some other things. And so they had a lot of agility issues because they had a lot of construction going on. They had a lot of things that were happening all over the place. And so we needed to make sure that they could be agile. And they actually utilized this when things were starting to go wrong in the organization. They had to have a team meeting and sit down and go, hey guys, remember, we signed up for this. We signed up to be agile. We signed up to be ability to change course directions when we needed to. And the reason they had to have that conversation is because the person that was having the issues with it, he was flipping out because the schedule was changing and he didn't know about it, was hired before the core values were set in place. Okay, well, he doesn't believe in agility. And so because he doesn't believe in agility, you hired him with one expectation, didn't explain it to him, and now he can't live up to it. Well, whose fault is that? It's our responsibility as leaders to set those expectations and help people understand what it means to work in this organization. And so I think that's a huge piece of this is understanding yourself, so you understand your values for what you're looking for, so then you can implement it into the systems of your organization. And for those who say, oh, I don't care about all that, I just want people that are willing to work hard. What is hard work? What is discipline? Those are values. So if you're not explaining that to people, all you're saying is work hard. Okay, well, I'm a hard worker, but guess what? I'm also not very loyal, because as soon as I work hard and I can get some more money somewhere else, I'm going to jump ship. So you have to help them understand what is more important than just working hard. So you can find people that are tremendous assets to your organization with this sense of values, because hard workers believe in values. They believe in doing the right thing for the right reason. And so you just have to articulate what that is so that you can bring the right people on board as you scale and as you grow. And then the skill sets come later. Do they need to be able to do their job? Absolutely. 99% of the time, if they're good people, I think everybody could agree with this. If they're good people, I can train them to be a customer service representative. I can't train them to care. I can't train them to show up early. I can't train them to be thoughtful as a human being, but I can train them to answer the phone. That's not the hard part. So to Nate, I would say this, buddy, figure out those values for yourself and what the vision is, so that when you're hiring people and bringing them on board, you can very clearly articulate what that looks like, so that when you bring them on board, you know much more quickly if they're the right fit, and you can trust them a lot more quickly.
Next sort of question, and about your client example you gave. Say you establish values after you've already hired people on board. So the next part of Nate's question is, how do you encourage people to embrace them? And that kind of applies also to, what if he adds in a value, down the road, something that's super important to the success of the company, but his previous employees don't have that expectation set? How do you encourage people to embrace them, new hires and already established hires?
Yeah, that's the wonderful part about this. When you get your values right, you don't have to get them to embrace anything. It's who they are, right? I don't get people, like, for you and I work really well together because you believe in responsibility. You believe in intentionality, which I call purpose. You believe in bettering yourself every day. I don't know about your empathy and gratitude much, because I haven't seen you interact with other people besides me, but you're very thoughtful to me. So I feel like you're empathetic. And I have yet to hear you complain too much about stuff, right? You may see problems, but you also look for opportunities. Those are my 5 core values. They may not be yours, but you can align with them. And because of that, we mesh really well together. I don't have to get you to believe responsibility is important. Right? In fact, if I have to convince you to be somebody you're not, I made a horrible decision, because that's not fair to you to have to try to change who you are. And it's not fair to me to have to put all of my energy into convincing you something you're not. So the goal here is that you don't have to convince anybody to be anything. You want to hire them and then support them in being the most them that they can possibly be. The challenge becomes the paradigm we're so used to is hire based off of skill sets and pay. Well, the challenge with that is, okay, they have the skill sets. I didn't give them the skill sets. I hired them for it. So now I have to pay for those skill sets, which is fine, right? If you got the money, that's great. And they're going to come on board and they're going to be really dedicated to that paycheck. And they're going to be really good at doing that skill set and nothing else. And as soon as there's an opportunity for them to get a little bit more pay with the same exact skill set, why would they not take that? Who in the right mind wouldn't take more money for the same amount of work? That's just smart, right? But when you hire based off of the values of your organization, when you hire based on like, I want to help people become more responsible for their lives. Kristen, is that something you want in your life?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So it's no longer about how much pay you get, right? If you were coming on board as a full-time employee of Next Better, it's not just about pay anymore. Yes, I have to pay you well and I care about you. So I'm going to pay you well because I'm empathetic and I know that you have needs in your life that you want to be able to fulfill. So I'm going to pay you well because that's what the right thing to do is. But you're not staying on board because of the pay. You're staying on board because you are who you are. We are who we are. That meshes really, really well. And so when times are tough or things get hard or we need to go all hands on deck, or even in the good times, you're around because you believe what we believe. And so the previous mindset was, how do we get people on board? No, the way to do it is you make sure that you bring the right people on board already based off of their values. Again, not their skill sets. I'll teach you all the stuff, right? You have to have a if you're an engineer, you got to have the degree to be an engineer. I can't do that part, right? But even in engineering, there are thousands of engineering firms. Just being an engineer is not enough. You have to be able to align with who we are. And so you bring the right people on board. You don't convince them anything. That's what I love about interviews. We've talked about this, right? That's what I love about interviews is like, I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm not here to convince you I'm somebody I'm not. I'm not here to convince you that you should be this type of hire. I'm here to tell you who we are. I'm here to ask you who you are. And then we're going to see if that aligns. And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, then that's okay too. You don't want to waste energy at a job you hate. I don't want to waste energy on somebody who doesn't align and doesn't get it. And that's okay too. That doesn't make them a bad person, but that's the piece that we really got to get clear on. And so I think that's really, really important. So that's for the hiring piece. How do we bring them on board once we know the core values? The other piece of this is what happens when there's people on board that don't get it. If you're doing this well, and most people aren't, and that's okay, right? We just didn't know any better for a long time. But if you're doing this well, that's not the problem, right? The problem isn't like they don't get it because you made sure that your job description and your hiring process and everything is bringing the right people on board. You're going to mess up once in a while. You're going to have people that manipulate you once in a while. But if you do really well, especially in the staging of how you interview and everything, you're going to get pretty good at this. But for the most part, they aren't the right. They're not going to be the wrong fit because you just did well as a leader. And if you've done the work and you're continuously getting the wrong people, you need to check yourself. You need to ask, what are we doing wrong to get the wrong people? But one of the biggest places I see this, and this is where it's really important because most companies aren't doing this yet. So they're going to run into this problem. And this problem is that we've done the work to change our core values. We've done the work to define the vision. We've never had it before. And now all of a sudden, there's this list of expectations and there's this direction we're going, which I didn't sign up for because I was never told it when I got hired. I wasn't told excellence or authenticity or love or commitment or protection was what I needed to believe in. I was told this is your job and this is your pay. And now all of a sudden I'm being asked to believe these other things and I didn't sign up for that. And so you're going to get a lot of pushback. You're going to get a lot of people that don't get it. You're going to get a lot of misunderstanding. And at the end of the day, change is hard, right? People don't like change. And so that's also going to be a thing that you have to overcome. So a couple of things that we need to realize. One, which is the harsh reality, some people are going to leave. You want to reduce that as much as possible, because if you're a good servant-hearted leader, like most people who listen to this are, you don't want people to leave. You want to care for them. You want to believe in them. But at the end of the day, the ship has changed direction. And some people are not going to this new island that you have envisioned for the group. So if they don't want to be on the ship anymore, it is not your place to force them to be on it, to say, hey, you need to change because of this. The ship's changed direction. We're going to a new island and we're using a different tool set to get there. So allow them to get off gracefully, with tact that honors them and all the work that they've done for you, but allow them to get off the ship and go somewhere else where they're a little bit more aligned. And so that's the piece that I think a lot of people are scared of, but you ultimately have to realize, why would we keep going in a direction we don't want to go just to appease people that don't even know what direction they want to go to, right? We have 20 different people in a boat. Nobody knows where we're going. So we're just drifting aimlessly in the ocean, hoping we bump into an island. Why is that fair to anybody? Because as a leader, you're scared to do the work necessary to make the change because you're worried a couple people might leave. We got to check ourselves again. We have to ask ourselves, is that the right way to do leadership? And so it is scary. Change is hard. But if you really want to make a difference and make a contributing, meaningful mark on the world and have a high level culture, you got to do this work. Every culture I've ever talked to that is doing well, when you walk in the door, you feel it. When you listen to them talk, you feel it. When you are a client, you feel it. They're doing these things: vision, values, rituals. So there's no question that you need it. The question just becomes, are you willing to do the work to get it done? And so that's the piece that people get scared of. The other piece is this: there might be people on your team that could be a good fit, but they just don't get it because of the change. That's where you need to be thoughtful about how you approach it. So I mentioned earlier, there are 3 ways to do this work. One is just force it on them off the back of a cereal box, or you go to the poster store and you find the cool, teamwork with everybody parachuting with their arms linked, right? Posters on a wall values. Those make me sick to my stomach. All right. These are the things we believe in, but we don't actually live by them. No, that's not what we're talking about here. But that's where a lot of people come from. We're going to hire a marketing agent to tell us all the things that the world is currently excited about, and we're going to, chase the shiny object. And so we don't want that. But the other option, when we've started to get people on board and we're going to change our values or in our vision, is we get their input. So instead of if it's a larger organization, and you no longer, it's just one founder, it's a group of individuals leading the charge. You don't want, as a founder, to just say, this is how we're going to do it, because nobody in the world has ever really appreciated a leader that just says, this is how we're going to do it. If you want to, that's fine. But I will say this: if you have 300 people on your team, I can promise you most of them don't have the same values as you. So if you don't get their input, you are going to lose a lot of your team members. And hey, guess what? You're the founder. So if that's the way if you need to just clear house and change direction, okay, just recognize the risk that comes with that. But if you are this person that's like, I want to keep this team together because I think we're doing well, but we could be better, then you go to the group, and there's processes and there's systems and there's ways to do this as work that I love to do. So if anybody's listening and they're like, how do I do it? Let's talk. I'll walk you through it. But you get the input from the individuals who are a part of the team, especially the ones that get it, right? Not the ones that stroke your ego, but the ones who get it, like the ones that you're like, you know what, I may not even like them very much, but man, they're a great part of this team. Also, not the high performers, because those guys could just be really good at what they do, but they don't actually care about the mission. But the people that actually get the feeling that you want. And so you get representation from different departments, and you have a facilitated conversation about the values of the organization, and you come up with the vision and the values. And then you're going to keep a majority of people. But the two people that are going to leave are the high performing toxic people who are like, I just want to do my job. Don't tell me how to live my life. Okay, that's fine. I'm sorry to lose you. We're going to lose some revenue in the process, but you're going to be an anchor to this culture, and you're going to make people leave that are actually a good fit. And then you're going to have the other people, which are they're just here for the paycheck. They're just going through the motions. No fault. I'm not blaming or judging those people. Like, there are days I dream about just showing up to work, doing my job, not thinking about anything else, and then leaving and never having to worry about it, right? Don't fault those people. Just know who they are and know what they want. But they're probably also going to leave as well because they didn't sign up for this. So you're going to get those extremes that leave, but you're going to keep the people that get it, and you're going to bring on people that get it. And then you're not going to have to worry about the turnover or the number of people that literally are the average for, I think, Gen Z generation right now is a year at an organization before they leave. And it costs up to 200 to 300% of their salary to rehire them for something else. So I'm sorry if you don't think this is worth it because you got bigger problems. Try paying 3 times as much for that person to get the next person because you didn't feel like it was worth it to have this conversation, right? And I get a little animated because sometimes that's the excuse I hear from people is like, yeah, values are all fine and dandy, but we got a bottom line. Yeah, and it's getting eaten up by the fact that you're not getting the right people on board. And this is how you do it because people want to believe in your organization and they want to stick around for that. And so that's how you overcome that issue of getting people on board that maybe don't get it.
Yeah, when you believe something, it makes the doing easy because it's what you want to do. So that's very efficient for the bottom line, especially.
Yes.
How about just all of this building culture in a startup in the remote world? Does it look any different? Are there other challenges to expect?
Yeah. So firstly, I have not created an online remote based organization. So I can't sit here and say, I have all the answers. What I do know is human behavior. And I do know that a lot of the things I share, the reason I can weigh in on a lot of this stuff is because they're principles of human psychology. Humans don't change to what they believe just because they're on a screen instead of in an office space. Their needs, their desires, their motivations are very similar, but the way that we go about them is very different. So there is no difference in terms of the need for a mission, values, and rituals. How we go about it and what we do on a regular basis to fulfill that may change drastically. And so I talked to a guy who runs an organization that basically does design work for companies, whether that's marketing design or it's like graphic design for 3D modeling for potential designs for creating stuff. And so not the world I'm in, so obviously I have no idea really what they do. But I went to their culture and I was blown away. Every single human that was there when I went in. I know this seems really small, but all of them made eye contact, smiled, and said hi, and gave me the body language that says, if you need me, I'm here. But they also weren't like overly pushy or judgmental. I'm sorry, but if you walk into 85, 90% of corporate America right now, that's not the vibe you get. Everybody's out to survive. And so I could feel the difference in their culture. And so I came to an event where they basically is on Fridays, they get together and they literally just sit around and talk about how awesome each other are, right? Like they do kudos basically. And so they just talk about, hey, this person did a really good job of showing up where it mattered. And this person did a really good job at crushing it for their client. And all of the kudos and all of the focus was on how well they did at the values they believe in, serving their clients, benefiting each other, showing up when it counts. And so the ritual was based around their values and their vision. And so I sat down with the CEO because I was like, I got to hear from this guy. I hope to get him on the podcast someday. And so it felt so good to be in that space. And so he shared something with me that I thought was really, really cool. And I promise it's getting to the remote work stuff, which was if he had to choose between reducing or giving out bonuses or cutting bonuses or cutting lunches on Wednesdays where everybody carries their food in to connect with them. He said, I would cut out bonuses in a heartbeat, right? Because he buys the food for him on Wednesdays or whatever, right? But a couple of reasons why that is. One, the lunches support and enforce the culture that they've created. And the employees started that ritual. He didn't say, I'm going to buy you lunch on Wednesdays because I think it's the right thing to do. Everybody show up, right? Because that's a forced ritual that nobody is a part of. The employees, the team members decided on that. And then he realizes the power of it. And so he supported it by spending money to put it in. So that's one thing. It was an employee started ritual that supported the values of collaboration and teamwork. By the way, it's in person. They're not virtual workers. And so the other thing that supports is the idea of I could give you all a little bonus, which they do get bonuses. I'm not suggesting that he doesn't also pay them well, but if he had to choose the two, he would choose the lunches because the raise benefits each individual a little bit, but the lunch benefits the team and the culture a lot. And so everywhere else you might hear, catered in lunches and you think, oh yeah, some stupid little, it's like beanbag chairs and ping pong tables, right? It's all these things that are being forced on people as a wellness offer. No, this is a catered in lunch, but the team wanted it because they believed in it and they wanted to be together. And all of this spurred after the remote work that they started. So they started with remote work and chose to come in intentionally. So they're a hybrid working environment. You don't have to be there, but they're choosing to be there because they want to be there, because the ritual that they chose supports the values that they believe in, and they were hired based off of those values. And so remote work can definitely work. And I'm not saying that hybrid is the way to go. I'm not saying fully in person is the way to go. I'm, a little Labrador puppy, so I love people. So I would rather be in the same space with you right now than doing this. But I also want to serve a lot of people. So this is the option. But when you're doing the remote work, the vision, the values, and the rituals still have to be there, but you have to be conscious about them. And sometimes it's even harder because the screen also supports multitasking. I've seen you look away a couple times because I know you're checking out the questions and all that kind of stuff. But most people, when they're looking away at a Zoom, it's because they're doing something else. And there's a lot of science behind. I'll share a book that The Art of Impossible. It's Steve Kotler. It talks about flow state, and there's a lot of research about flow state, which is basically a psychological state where you are completely in the zone. We see it a lot in sports and music. It seems like time stands still. It seems like I'm completely immersed in what I'm doing. I just can't miss. All right, the piano plays itself. I'm just the instrument, right? Like all of these things, flow state can happen in any organization, in any level of work, but you have to be completely entrenched in it. And it takes neurologically, it takes 25 minutes to get out of, once you get out of flow state, to get back into it. 25 minutes to get fully immersed in your work. How many dings and pings do we get in 25 minutes? And the only thing it takes is a ding, a ping, or a brrr, right? Which is my horrible rendition of a vibration of a phone. So to say that like remote work is the same, like working on a computer is the same, it's not. There are many things you can do on a computer and remotely to make it work. But there are certain things that you just, unless your team is very willing, and you got to set this expectation up early based off of the values and build a ritual, unless they're willing to shut the phone off and put it somewhere else so that they are completely zoned in and they don't open up any other tabs, it's really hard to do it fully remotely unless you have very clear expectations of what you want, or your only desire is production output, in which case, again, like a lot of people are like, well, we'll just measure their output and that's how we'll keep track of whether or not they're doing well. As long as you get your work done, it doesn't matter. That's fine. What are you rewarding? Output. How are you rewarding it? Pay. How long are they going to stay? Long enough to find a better pay for the same output. And so it's really hard to get them entrenched into the values and the vision unless you have rituals that do so. So I've seen a lot of, seen and heard of a lot of organizations that do remote work, but they also meet quarterly, like in person. And it's very hard to do this, right? Because then you're talking about travel fare and all those things, but these are the trade-offs you're asking for. But they'll do like a quarterly in person where they all get together and just serendipitous. We're not heads down on laptops, because guess what? We could have done that anywhere else. But there's intentional strategies behind the rituals that allow us to connect more meaningfully as humans. So, to reiterate, yes, remote work can work, but you have to be ready to be very intentional, more intentional with the vision, values, and rituals.
And yeah, communication is definitely key in that.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, yeah. I've got a question from Jen, switching gears a little bit. She's currently in an adverse season and often finds herself questioning her self-worth in facing adversity. So her question is, how do you stay positive during seasons of adversity?
Yeah. Yeah. I love this question, Jen, and keep your chin up. And for this very reason, which is also the answer to your question, your value is not in any way, shape, or form predicated to what you provide for the world. We are human beings, not human doings. You have value and worth because you are a person, because you are a human, because you are a living being. And that's enough. One of my favorite mantras is, you do enough, you have enough, you are enough. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I haven't had those same exact feelings. I have regularly and recently. And so it's not a matter of whether or not you feel them. It's a matter of whether or not you can recognize in those lows and in the highs the actuality and the truth behind it. And so again, I reiterate, you have worth and value simply as being a human being. Now, there is a way you have value inherently. How do you provide value? That's a great question, and one that I think we need to recognize is important, because as a social species, we want to provide value to the society and to our world. One of my goals, the outcome of my purpose statement, is people contribute meaningfully to the world. My full purpose statement is I help people find their purpose and fulfill it so they can contribute meaningfully to the world. So that in and of itself is an inherent value that I want to provide. But I also need to recognize there are multitudes of ways to do that. So Jen, one of the things I want to recognize, I don't know where you're at in your life in terms of do you have family? Do you not? Do you know, are you in college or whatever? I want you to recognize that no matter where you are in life, you are providing value in a multitude of ways. And you really need to disassociate the value you provide to the world with what you do to make money. One of the models that I have, I call it the well-being continuums. There are 8 areas of your life that you can improve to better your life in a productive way. And so 2 of those are material and vocational. A lot of people know what occupational wellness is. Occupation is what you do to make money. There are so many people in this world that provide value that have nothing to do with money. Mother Teresa did not do what she did for money. But you better believe she had a calling. And that's what vocational means. Vocational, a calling. And so you have to recognize, and it takes time, but you have to recognize the value that you bring to the world that's outside of that. So for instance, the value that I bring to the world. I love to coach. I met with one of my clients and his spouse this morning, and it got really deep really quick, and I coached them through some stuff. Did I intend to do that? Absolutely not, but it's who I am, and I care, and that's what I do for the world. I didn't get paid to do that. I got paid to be his coach. I didn't get paid for this hour and a half, 2 hours of helping them through some struggles, but it's my calling. It's what I meant to do. When I raise my son, I'm providing value to the world. When I support my wife, I'm providing value to the world. And we get this really messed up view that in order to provide value to the world, I have to do what everybody else is on Instagram and make the money and buy the cars and do all those things. And I will tell you that what we leave behind is not going to be all of that junk. It's going to be the impact we had on people, because they're going to take that and pay it forward, and they're going to take that and pay it forward. So to me, providing value means you're helping others, and most people would believe that. And but that can look like a lot of different things. And it can be the smallest of things and the biggest of things. But one of the biggest thing that's helped me and has helped a lot of people that I work with is to disassociate what you do for money with how you provide value to the world. That's one way. And if you can provide value based off of what you do, you can love it and you can make money. That is a win-win. That's great. Not everybody can do that, and that's okay too. But you can find more and more ways to get that done. And so that's a lot of the work I do is help people find. So one of the continuums for our well-being is directional well-being. So do I know my purpose in life and the values that I live by? The more work you can do on that, the more you can recognize the different areas in your life that you can provide value, because I can help people find direction in their life in a lot of different ways. I do that teaching at Purdue University. I do that in the coaching practice that I do. I do that in my family. I do that when I'm talking to my friends and helping them through a struggle. I find fulfillment in those things. And so that's the value I provide for the world. And not all of that provides money, and that's okay. We inherently have value as humans, and there are ways we can bring value that have nothing to do with money. And so I would implore you to start to take stock of what that looks like. One way to do that is to think of all the different areas of your life. So again, there's physical. So are you taking care of your body? There's mental. Are you doing mindfulness practices, journaling, meditation, body scanning, whatever it happens to be, to be able to take care of your mind? Are you taking care of your spiritual wellness, which is your belief in something bigger than yourself? So getting yourself out of your own head and serving others, because as soon as you start to serve others, you're providing value. Your social well-being. Are you there for your friends? And if you have means to do that, then great. Are you there for your family? Then there's your material wellness. So are you saving money and collecting and saving for, the rainy days or the situations? Wealth is not what you have. Wealth is not what you buy. It's what you don't buy. It's the money that you save, right? Right. There's a difference between rich and wealthy. And so are you doing that? And then there's the vocational, which is, what are you doing with your time to contribute to the world? And I bet you, Jen, if you looked at all of those different areas, you could find one or two ways that you're providing value. And now you just went from that space in your mind of I don't provide any value to I'm providing value in 8 to 16 different ways. And then you can ask yourself, which one's the most impactful for me and how do I do more of it? So that would be what I would suggest you kind of look into as a framework for how you can start to reframe it. There's an app that I use that I really like called ThinkUp, which is positive affirmations. And it's basically you record positive affirmations of the life that you want to live, and then you play it back to yourself, because your voice needs to be the thing that's telling you that you are worth it, that you have value. And a lot of high achievers are like, oh yeah, blah, 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 blah. Tell myself that. I say it's because you don't do it enough. You don't believe in it because you don't do it enough. But 85% of your thoughts are negative. 90% are the thoughts you had yesterday. Change your thoughts, change your habits, change your life. And so that could be another really great way, is to download that app, ThinkUp, but there's probably other ones for positive affirmations, and then just start to reframe that neural rut that you're in that makes you believe you're not bringing value. Because I promise you, you are, Jen. You are. And if you want to talk more about it, I'm happy to share other thoughts and strategies, because you are an awesome person and you bring value to this world. You bring value to me because you asked a really cool question, and my job and my life is all about answering people's questions and helping them. So you're already bringing value by allowing me to live my purpose. So thank you for that.
And it's great to apply that self-worth to when you're facing any adversity at all. You know that you add value and you can make an impact. So it makes it easier to go through adversity, because adversity is it could be facing anything. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I have one more question. I think we can fit it in. Excuse me. Anonymous question. If you are wanting to be successful and working really hard to get there, but also wanting the balance of play and relaxation, how do you manage those? And how do you incorporate both into your life while still making progress towards your goals and dreams? And this was inspired by being a former bodybuilder and having a very all or nothing mindset.
Yeah. I love it. one of the cool things about being a coach is helping people realize that I don't actually give answers. I help people ask really good questions, and then they find the answers on their own. And one of the questions that I ask people that they have a really hard time answering is, what does success mean to you? But I'm gonna jump the fence of coaching a little bit and just get straight down to the point. If what you want is balance, then why can't that be the measurement of success? The only thing that takes you out of balance is your decision to add more to one area of your life than the other. So if you are choosing to add something from one side to the other, which is what makes it imbalanced, you are choosing to leave balance for the sake of this other thing. So either you don't know how to find balance because you don't know what it means, you don't know what it looks like, in which case you need to define what that means. And I promise you, it's not time balance. It's not, I spend an hour here, so I spend an hour there. It's energy balance, because energy is what brings value to time, right? If I sit around and eat Cheetos for an hour, or I sit and practice the harmonica for an hour, what brought more value to that hour was the energy I put into it to develop myself. So it's not about the hour, it's about what we do with it. So if balance is truly your definition of success, I want it, that means that it is something you want to be successful at, then, and you don't know how to do it, then you need to define what that is. The other alternative is you don't actually want balance. You're telling yourself that if I find balance, there won't be so much stress in my life. And I don't want the stress. And so then you have to ask yourself, okay, if I don't want the stress, what is stressing me out? Simon Sinek said it really well. When I work really hard for something I don't care about, that's called stress. When I work really hard for something I do care about, that's called passion. It's not the hard work that scares you. You are a bodybuilder. That scares me. I've contemplated that. And I'm like, I don't know if I have the discipline to do that, mostly because I haven't tried. But the hard work's not what's scaring you. The hard work is that you're going to do a bunch of stuff that ultimately doesn't end up mattering to you. And it's going to be stressful. And that stress is going to pull you away from all the other things that do matter to you. Because I can tell you what, you can be stressed being a parent. People want to say, I want to spend more time with my kids. But when they're faced with that opportunity, they dive back into their emails when they get home. Why? Because it's easier. It's easier than sitting there and going, how do I connect more meaningfully with my kids? So it's the stress part that scares you. It's the challenge and the uncertainty and not knowing whether or not you're developing your time into something that matters to you, right? Because if balance is truly what you want and you can define it, then you can work towards it. And then that's your measurement of success. If you want it and you can get to it, that's the definition of success. Sometimes people don't want balance because then they think, oh, well, then I can't do things that are meaningful. If I'm sitting around sipping Mai Tais or doing puzzles with my kids, I'm not contributing meaningfully to the world. Okay, well then what's the fear there? Are you really, are you really trying to find balance, or are you really trying to find more meaningful connections with your kids? Because I can tell you 2 hours with your kids every other day is a lot, where you're actually zoned in and focused and intentional, is drastically more meaningful than an hour every day where you're on your phone. And so I think that is really the question you have to ask yourself, is balance really what you want? Because if it is, then that's how you define success. And then you just got to get really clear about it, right? Because the bodybuilding, right? It's very clear understanding of what success looks like. You get points, you get judged, you win, you lose, you go home, right? Like there's these metrics. And that's one of the biggest problems people have, is they don't know how to define the metrics of success for what balance looks like. And so figure out if that's truly what you want. And if it's not, ask yourself, why is why is balance so intriguing to me? What is it really about the balance? And so I think, and sometimes it's I'm running away from something. Well, I'm so stressed out at work. I just wish I didn't have to work so much. Well, it's not that you don't want to work so much, it's that you just don't like what you're doing. And so you think the alternative to that is to not do anything. I see this all the time with people who are like, I can't wait to retire from this job I hate. And then they sit around and do nothing for 6 months and then they die because they had no reason to get up and do anything. And so they didn't take care of themselves and they didn't have a reason to get out of bed and they stopped socially connecting with people. And that increasingly exacerbated their cognitive decline because social interaction keeps our brains fresh. And so this happens to people all the time because they thought what they wanted was sipping mai tais on the beach, and what they really wanted was to find a better way to contribute more meaningfully to the world and have time with their loved ones. Boom, there's the success. Now how do I measure that? And I promise you it's not easy. As someone who's doing what they love, I still wake up in during the not in the middle of the night. I sleep like a log, but I still wake up during the day, or I still am aware during the day and get anxious about things because I still want to do a good job and I still wanted to be successful. And sometimes I lose sight of that. I'm a human. I eat pizza. I drink beer. One of my best friends didn't even know I drank beer. And it's like, man, what else don't you know about me? Right? It's like I'm a human, and I think about these things enough to define what matters and then take action on it. And so I think that's the piece that I think a lot of people are missing is what is it about balance that is really success to me, and then pursue that. If you are motivated by success, then change the lesson of success.
I don't know if there's really an answer to this question, but if balance is the goal, right? And energy is the currency that you use over time and to have that metric of what balance looks like, measuring that. How would you make progress towards your goals and dreams that might require imbalance, like bodybuilding or like building up your personal training clientele, like your own business? How would you make progress in that and invest a lot of time in that when you have a bunch of other priorities, but you want to be balanced? I think there's an answer in there of, what gives you energy and what doesn't. If I'm thinking back to a conversation that we had, but would love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I love that. So there's a couple of things there that I think are really important. And two of the concepts that I think are important here is what is actually a priority, like how do we define priorities, and FOMO. So it's funny, I'm a part of a lot of nonprofits. And one of the things that I'm noticing about nonprofits is I shouldn't say a lot. I am at one time I'm involved with one nonprofit pretty deeply, right? And part of being on nonprofits is part of being a committee, being on a committee. What is the root word of committee, Kristen? I know I didn't prep you for this, so just let's see what you got.
Like community, come together,
I like where you're going, calm, right? That's part of it. But
togetherness,
but think about committee,
commitment to each other.
commitment.
Hmm.
Not even to each other
Right.
necessarily. It's commitment to whatever you say you're going to do.
Hmm.
So I see all of these people saying yes to committees because they like the feeling of being a part of them, and then they just phone it in, right? They don't dive in. They don't get all in on it because they have all these other things going on. We're busy. I get it. I'm busy. But one of the challenges is, again, you only have so big of a plate before your plate can't take on anymore. Your plate doesn't get any bigger. Your plate is your time and your energy. That doesn't get bigger. You can make a stronger plate, so more resilient. You can improve your systems and your processes, and that's why people get so obsessed with AI and making things easier and more streamlined and more convenient. And let's use Slack and ClickUp, and let's do Trello, and let's do Gantt boards, and just efficiency. This right? Cal Newport talks a lot about this and slow productivity, but you still can only do that so long. And again, if you're bringing things on your plate that drain you of energy, then your plate doesn't get stronger, it gets weaker. So you're saying yes to all these things. And that brings us to the other point, which is FOMO. So for one, you're not prioritizing it. So you can say it's a priority, but you're not prioritizing it. You are just adding it to a plate and a list of things that should get done that are not getting done. So you're not prioritizing it, you're just adding it to the list. Prioritizing it means you put it above most other things. right? And so Simon Sinek again talks about this a little bit. He's like, do you think you're a good friend? Well, yeah, I think I'm a good friend. Would you cancel a business meeting if your friend called and said they needed help? If you don't, then you're not a good friend. Well, they'll get it. Maybe once, maybe twice, right? But like, where is that level? What meeting are you willing to cancel versus not? So again, it's like, what really is a priority? And this is not a judgment. This is a call to ask yourself, what truly is a priority? Because I think all of us would like to not have so much on our plate. And I'll give you a really good litmus test if this discrepancy between I want to slow down and have less to do and your actual actions, right? As you're driving home tonight, when you hit that third red light and you have to sit there for 30 seconds and you have nothing to do and you're sitting in this AC air conditioned, car with all these safety bags, you are safe. You are nestled in this little lumbar supported thing with your seatbelt on, right? And you got your water or whatever it is, your coffee, hopefully not, right? Sitting next to you. You're very safe and supported. I want you to ask yourself, how do I feel right now? And if you're feeling pissed off because you have places to be, then you don't want more time on your hands because you were just given it and you chose not to appreciate it, right? And so it's this idea of like, are you taking the actions necessary to get more time on your hands? And a lot of that is prioritization. The last part is FOMO. I think access to a lot of people, a lot of ideas, and a lot of opportunities has given us a lot of cool things to be excited about. One of them that has not done so well is this fear of FOMO. There are kids out there that are 12 to 14 years old who think that that success is I'm a millionaire by the time I'm 15. Right? You will probably not be a millionaire. Now, if I'm wrong, you'll be a millionaire. Congratulations. High five. But if I'm right, you have to ask yourself, can I find value in other ways? Can I be grateful for the things I already have? And can I let go of these things that ultimately don't matter to me, but I just saw them and I think it's biological wiring. I compare myself to other people. I do this too. This is why I can't be on Instagram. Because as soon as on LinkedIn, even when I scroll on LinkedIn, I'm like, oh man, look at all the cool things that they're doing. Oh my gosh, look at the people they're working with. Look at all the impact that they're making. Am I making this much impact? Am I doing this much? And it's just exhausting, but it also gives you this sense of I need to be doing all these things and doing all that. And so you get fear of missing out. So will you miss out on opportunities? Yes. Yes, you will. 100%. Am I going to go cliff diving in Honolulu? No. Do I want to go cliff? I was actually in Hawaii and I had a chance to cliff dive and I didn't. Right. And I'm like, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I should have. And then I'm like, I don't care. I don't like heights and I don't like falling. So why do I care? And so it's really truly defining what matters to you so that when the time comes, you can say no to good opportunities because good is the enemy of great. And so you have to be understanding of that ability to what prioritization really is, and then realizing what matters to you so that when good opportunities come, it's not the bad ones that are the problem. Bad opportunities are easy to say no to. It's the good ones that are going to keep you in this trap of busy and prevent you from doing the great things, the things that truly matter to you, the things that are ultimately going to benefit you. And so once that happens, then you recognize that the deep dive into bodybuilding that you're going to do, that's going to be painful and exhausting for a little while, is a period of time that is worth it because A, it is a priority, and B, you recognize that it's temporary. Like all things in life. Try to tell me one thing that's not temporary and I will help you understand that it's wrong, other than the flow of time. Right? So you just got to ask yourself what matters to you now, recognize that those hardships and that stressor will be temporary. But again, it comes back to, does it matter to you? And if it matters to you, then it's going to be okay because it's worth it. But you got to understand why it's worth it. And it can't be because 14 other people were online bodybuilding. And so I want to lose a little bit of weight. And so, oh, well, maybe if I bodybuild, then that'll be the answer. It's like, what matters to you? And then how do I start to put that into my life?
It's wonderful. Love it.
I love it.
We
Great
are
questions.
over time, right?
We are
Yeah.
way over time. Oh my God. It's okay. Everybody checked off anyway. So for those of you still sticking around that are listening, I'll give you $5 in cash if you run into me somewhere in Lafayette. Promise, hand on the table, that I will give you $5 if you run into me in Lafayette in the next 3 days. That's my deal. Kristen, hold me to it. Thank you guys so much for hopping on. Thanks for the questions. Kristen, do you have a teaser question, or did we get through them all today?
Yeah, we've got one more question pending for our next show in 2 weeks. It's just about how to schedule and make progress on multiple large projects that you want to do, but don't necessarily have to do, and while still maintaining life, work, cooking, and cleaning, and all of the things that can pile up and fill up one's day.
Spoiler
Challenge
alert.
for you.
We just talked about that with the idea of prioritization. So what we will do next time is, and Kristen's going to hold me to it because I will forget, is we're going to talk about how you go through the process of figuring out which one of those things matters to you. So we talked about why. Now we can talk about how.
Love it.
Awesome. Kristen Wrinkle, as always, you're wonderful. Also, congratulations on the new role. Everybody should know you're going to go off to do amazing things, and I'm going to miss you so much, but we'll keep doing this so I get to see you more than most people do. So excited for you. And so until next time, y'all, I am Coach Woody with Next Better, helping you figure out your direction in life and how to fulfill it so you can contribute meaningfully to the world. And until that time, make it a great day.